Welcome back to English Listening World. I'm Les Paris, and this is the 6th episode in our series, Akihiro's Listening Journey. In our previous episodes, Akihiro discovered the rhythm of English, learned to break sentences into manageable chunks, practiced shadowing, mastered high-intensity repetition, and discovered the power of closing his eyes to enhance listening. Today, he'll learn a technique that helps unlock the structure of English sentences, identifying the subject, verb, and object. For many language learners, especially those whose native languages have different sentence structures, understanding complex English sentences can be challenging. Today, Akihiro will discover how focusing on the basic building blocks of English grammar can dramatically improve comprehension, even in fast-paced professional discussions. Let's join Akihiro as he makes this important discovery. Chapter 6. Identifying SVO. The client approved the proposal but requested additional security features before moving forward with implementation. The words seemed to float around the conference room like scattered puzzle pieces. Akihiro identified several of them individually: client, approved, security features. But he struggled to assemble them into a coherent message. Who had approved what exactly? And what was the actual request? 7 weeks into his English listening journey, Akihiro had developed a substantial toolkit of techniques. He knew how to find the rhythm in English speech, break sentences into manageable chunks, shadow speakers, use high-intensity repetition for challenging phrases, and close his eyes to enhance auditory processing. Each technique had helped him overcome specific listening obstacles. But today's brainstorming session presented a new challenge: complex sentences with multiple clauses flying rapidly across the table. The meeting room buzzed with excited conversation as the team discussed the Thompson Project's next phrase. The whiteboard was covered with flowcharts and technical terms. 6 team members spoke almost over each other, building on each other's ideas with enthusiasm. So what do you think, Akihiro? Can you handle the security documentation? Akihiro froze. He had caught security and assumed they were discussing the security features mentioned earlier. Documentation seems straightforward enough. Yes, I can prepare the security documentation. A brief silence fell over the room. Actually, we weren't discussing documentation. Mike just proposed that you might help the client understand the security implementation process, since you explained it so clearly in the last presentation. Heat rose to Akihiro's face as he realized his mistake. I see. Yes, I'd be happy to explain the implementation process to the client. As the meeting continued, Akihiro observed his colleagues carefully. Despite the rapid-fire conversation, they seemed to track the discussion effortlessly. What were they doing that he wasn't? He noticed Tanaka-san jotting notes in her small notebook. When she shifted to reach for her water glass, he glimpsed something on her page. Something stood out. She had written S-V-O next to several bullet points, underlining different words in different colors. After the meeting ended, Akihiro approached Tanaka-san as she gathered her materials. Excuse me, Tanaka-san. I noticed you were writing SVO in your notes. What does that mean? She smiled. You have a keen eye, Akihiro-kun. SVO is short for subject, verb, object. It's the basic structure of English sentences. She flipped her notebook open and pointed to a line. I find that no matter how complex the discussion gets, if I can identify these three core elements, I can grasp the main point. Subject, verb, object. Akihiro repeated thoughtfully. Yes, in English, the basic pattern is always who did what to whom. Very different from Japanese, where the verb comes at the end. This observation struck Akihiro like a revelation. In Japanese, the typical structure was subject, object, verb. The client, the proposal, approved. No wonder he sometimes felt lost, waiting for the meaning to become clear. He was unconsciously waiting for the verb that, in English, had already passed. That's fascinating. I never thought about how the sentence structure differences might affect listening comprehension. When I first came to America, I was always a step behind in conversations. Then, a linguist friend suggested I train myself to look for the SVO pattern. It made a tremendous difference. Back at his desk, Akihiro researched the grammatical differences between Japanese and English sentence structures. The contrast was striking. English followed subject, verb, object, while Japanese followed subject, object, verb. This fundamental difference explained why complex English sentences could feel so disorienting. He pulled up the recording of today's meeting, which was automatically saved for reference. He replayed the sentence that had confused him. The client approved the proposal but requested additional security features before moving forward with implementation. This time, he listened specifically for SVO patterns. Breaking it down this way, the meaning became crystal clear. There were essentially two messages. The client had approved their proposal, and the client had requested more security features. Excited by this discovery, Akihiro spent the afternoon practicing with more examples from meeting recordings. For each sentence, he identified the subject, who or what, the verb, the action, and the object, the receiver of the action. When sentences contained multiple clauses, he broke each one down into its own SVO pattern. The next day, Akihiro attended a planning meeting with senior management. As executives debated the quarterly roadmap, they used complex, jargon-filled sentences that would have overwhelmed him just a week ago. This time, he focused on extracting the SVO patterns from each contribution. When the CEO asked for input on prioritizing features, Akihiro was ready. I'd like to hear perspective from the development team. Akihiro, given the client's feedback and our current timeline constraints, which features do you think we should prioritize for the Q2 release? Akihiro took a moment, mentally identifying the SVO structure of the question. The subject was we, the team. The verb was should prioritize. And the object was which features. The rest was context. Based on the client feedback, I believe we should prioritize the authentication system upgrade and data encryption features. The reporting dashboard enhancements could be moved to Q3 without affecting the security compliance requirements. The CEO nodded approvingly. That aligns with my thinking as well. Let's proceed with that approach. After the meeting, Mr. Wilson stopped by Akihiro's desk. Good job in there. Your English comprehension has improved dramatically over these past 2 months. Thank you. I've been working on it. Akihiro replied, pleased that his efforts were being recognized. That evening on the train home, Akihiro added to his growing collection of listening techniques. Technique number 6. Identify SVO, subject, verb, object. Listen for the core sentence structure. Who did what to whom? For complex sentences, find the main verb first, then identify subject and object. Break multiple clauses into separate SVO patterns. Remember that English is SVO, unlike Japanese, which is SOV. This helps extract the main point even from complex, jargon-filled sentences, especially useful in fast-paced professional discussions. He also noticed how this technique complemented his previous ones. Use rhythm recognition to identify stressed words, often key parts of SVO. Apply chunking to separate clauses into manageable pieces. Close eyes during complex sentences to focus on identifying SVO. Use shadowing to practice producing correct SVO structures. As Akihiro looked out the train window at the passing city lights, he reflected on his progress. 6 techniques now, each building on the others. What had once seemed like an impenetrable wall of sound was now becoming a structured language he could navigate with growing confidence. With each new technique, English was transforming from a source of anxiety into a tool he could wield. The conversations he had once dreaded were becoming opportunities to connect and contribute. Though challenges remained, he now had a systematic approach to overcome them, one sentence structure at a time. And that's how Akihiro discovered his 6th listening technique: identifying the subject, verb, and object in English sentences. To practice this technique yourself, try these simple steps. Train yourself to recognize the basic SVO patterns in English sentences. When listening to complex sentences, identify the main verb first. Then locate who is performing the action, subject, and what receives it, object. For sentences with multiple clauses, break each one down into its own SVO pattern. Remember that in English, the verb typically comes second in the sentence structure. Combine with previous techniques for comprehensive understanding. This technique is particularly helpful for speakers of languages with different sentence structures, such as Japanese, Korean, or Turkish, where the verb often comes at the end of the sentence. Join us next time when Akihiro discovers how focusing on verb tenses can dramatically improve his understanding of time references in English. Thanks for listening to English Listening World. Don't forget to subscribe and practice what you've learned today.